because when you benefit all children, you benefit America, you benefit our state. And so we really want this to benefit everyone, not just this bias towards middle and income households. I also want to reflect on, we've seen a lot of talk about pronatalism, this idea that we should be reversing the birth rate in our country by doing family friendly policies. If we are sort of singling out families and not giving them the benefits of the child tax credit, we're going against this idea of helping families out. And so I think this is an important little thing that's important for us. A lot of things in this bill are unfair when it comes to talking about low income kids and them not getting the benefit and those families not getting the benefit of the child tax credit. But the most unfair thing is this idea about stricter eligibility requirements. Right now in this bill, what we're hearing is that, and what we're seeing is that if you're a family with an American dad or an American mom, American kids, but one of the parents was born in another country, they will not get the benefits of this child tax credit. In other words, if you don't have a Social Security number, one of the parents, no one benefits in that family. And so here's this little, maybe low income American child with an American mom or American dad. And we're saying just because one of your parents doesn't have a Social Security number, you cannot benefit from this. This is the most unfair thing that we've seen in this. That needs to be changed. And I think when we look at the entirety of this thing, what we're seeing is that this is just part of some of the broader cuts to our social safety net that we have in this country. When we see cuts in SNAP and cuts in childcare, all these things that disproportionately harm low-income families, we're saying this is wrong, this is unfair, and this needs to change. And so we see this bill doing little to nothing for millions of the lowest income families. It really just exacerbates existing disparities tied to welfare cuts that hit families the hardest. And so this is really sort of a tax cut in disguise that mostly rewards families who've already earned enough and meet strict eligibility rules. The children who need this the most are getting little to none when we talk about this child tax credit, which was really meant to benefit all children as it was birthed. So let's go to Elizabeth Colvin, who's also here to talk about this. Elizabeth is the executive director for Raise Texas. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here. What is your take on this?
Well, the child tax credit has historically enjoyed broad bipartisan support because it rewards work, reduces child poverty, as you mentioned, and strengthens our workforce for the future. And as you mentioned, we also saw a historic reduction in child poverty in the recent expansion of the child tax credit. That is an extraordinary achievement that we should build on, not roll back or take away. At Raise Texas, we work to advance financial security and economic opportunity for families across our state. We know that when families have the tools and resources they need to build financial stability, our communities and our economy are stronger. Yet in Texas, approximately 875,000 American children with Social Security numbers are now at risk of losing eligibility under the proposed changes. These children are our students, our neighbors, and they are the future of Texas. The current policy also, as you mentioned, widens the gap between families who have higher incomes who will get the full child tax credit and families with lower incomes who will only get a partial credit for the same number of children. This is not fair. This is not fiscally responsible. And this is not how we grow a stronger Texas. If we want to support work, reduce poverty, and strengthen our future workforce, we need a child tax credit that includes all families, especially those working hard every day to make ends meet. And that's why we're here today participating as Raise Texas, because we want Congress to protect the current child tax credit so that every family in Texas has a fair chance of building a stable future.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth, I wanted to ask you, do you think that representatives and the senators in Texas who are sort of debating this bill, talking about this bill, do you think that they understand that 65% of our kids in Texas are low income, and this is going to have a dramatic impact on our children and families.
I think they're not connecting the dots. I think they're talking about taxes and they're not realizing how much this impacts individual families and households, their ability to buy groceries, spend money locally, and how it impacts their children and really the future of Texas. No, they need to connect the dots. This is not about taxes. This is about families in Texas that we need to support.
Thank you, Elizabeth, very much. Elizabeth Colvin is the executive director of Raise Texas. Let's go to Ashley Harris. Ashley is the director of public policy and advocacy at United Ways of Texas. Ashley, what's your take and the take of United Ways of Texas?
Yes, I think we'll hear this a lot today as we're talking, but I have to just reiterate that the child tax credit, we believe, is one of the most important tools in our country that has been used to support families and fight poverty. Since it was created, we know it's helped millions of families put food on the table. Like you said, Dr. Sanborn, it's helped families pay for childcare and other critical expenses, and also handle emergency expenses that may come up for families, like, if you have car issues, help families to stay afloat, be able to get to work, be able to provide for their household. At United Way, we work in every part of Texas, and we've seen firsthand the power of the child tax credit. It not only provides a safety net that we've talked about a little bit, but it also provides a springboard for families, especially our lowest income families, to get on that pathway to long-term financial security. I think it's also important to note, Dr. Sanborn, that the child tax credit provides, it gives family a little bit of breathing room, helping them to avoid those, that crisis that may come up, that hospital visit, or, costly car repair that comes up, and build a more stable foundation for the future, which for us at United Way, that's core to our mission. I think it's really unfortunate that nearly 19 million children are still left out of that full credit because their families earn too little, despite the fact they're working hard every day. This includes kids in rural areas. It includes children in veteran households. It also includes children that are in immigrant communities across Texas. And so I think, just to kind of wrap up my comments, I want to just reiterate that, again, the child tax credit is one of the most effective tools for reducing child poverty, especially when that's fully refundable for our lowest income working families. So we believe that limiting its reach really undercuts its power to lift the poorest Texas children out of hardship.
Yeah, very good. Ashley Harris is with United Ways of Texas. Thank you, Ashley, very, very much for your remarks. Michael Mireles is with us. He's the Director of Civic Engagement at La Unión del Pueblo Entero, or Lupe, down in the Valley. Michael, give us the take. I think a lot of people don't understand that the majority of our children, over 50% of our children, are Latino, but more importantly, about a third of all of the children in Texas are children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. And so when we talk about these two groups, this bill has a significant negative impact on them.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly unjust what these budget proposals are doing. We are funding a $3.8 trillion tax cut for businesses by forcing children into poverty, and more specifically, children who are of mixed status households in the state of Texas. We have a little less than 1 million citizens who live in a mixed status household in this state, and the specific restrictions that are included in the proposal targets and attacks those mixed status households. In the Senate version, even though they make it so that folks, if you don't have both parents filing with a Social Security, you don't receive the child tax credit. The House version is a little less aggressive, but at the end of the day, it's very clear we're attacking immigrant households. That's what these proposals are doing.
Yeah. I know that you speak a little Spanish, Michael. ¿Nos puede hablar un poco para la prensa en español? ¿Nos puede hablar un poco sobre qué es the effect on Latino families, familias latinos?
Sí, es injusto lo que está pasando en estas propuestas de ley. Específicamente están haciendo para que las familias de hogares de estatus mixtos que no pueden recibir ese crédito tributario de los hijos. estamos dando 3.8 trillones de dólares en crédito para los negocios y estamos quitando el dinero de los niños para poder fundar esas provisiones. Entonces, para nosotros sí es un ataque contra las familias inmigrantes, específicamente un ataque contra los hijos de las familias inmigrantes.
Michael, give us an idea from your perspective and from the perspective of Lupe. When we talk about Latino families in the Valley, and really we're talking about Latino families all across the state, many of them in this group of low-income households, what does it mean for those families when they're getting less than a middle income or higher family in terms of the tax cut?
Even in South Texas, we have one of the highest poverty rates in the state. Yes, this is a predominantly Latino area with a lot of mixed status households. Taking away this child tax credit opportunity from these families is only going to make things worse for the people who live in South Texas.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Michael Mireles from Lupe. Ashley, I wanted to go back to you, United Ways of Texas. Can you, talking about what we've been talking about with Michael, these low-income families? I mean, obviously, United Way, you're fighting for families and children all across the state of Texas, much like all of us here. But when you hear about this disproportionately affecting low-income families, it's alarming to all of us.
It is, and especially when we think about in Texas, we've talked for many years, we've talked about the need to be able to build up a workforce to kind of meet our workforce demands, and it's a real challenge. And we believe that families that are, those workers that are heading, households, lowest income households could be that workforce to meet our workforce goals. And so we believe the child tax credit could play a critical role in getting those, not just supporting children on that pathway to financial security, but giving parents kind of that springboard they need to be able to maybe get a new certificate, a new skill, to be able to get a higher wage, more, quality job. And for us, it kind of part of that bigger financial security pathway to economic mobility that CTC has also played a critical role in. And we think by not targeting and really leveraging child tax credit to the fullest, especially for our lowest income households, we're kind of undermining our own goals that we have as a state and as a nation to be able to be able to meet those workforce demands that we're seeing in so many communities, especially in Texas.
When we talk about this bill, the broader sense of this bill, and specifically this policy initiative. One of the things is that there's so many things going on for the general public to understand, Ashley, right? I mean, there's so many, we hear about cuts here, cuts there, things that may sound good to some of us. And I'm wondering, we are focusing on this, but this is also seems to be part of an effort to do a lot of things that are going to have this really negative impact on a lot of Texas families.
Absolutely. I think for us advocates, it's been a little hard to kind of see what, where all the potential cuts could be. And I think it's made it hard for, just everyday Texans who are working hard, just trying to put food on the table to know the potential impacts that these policy decisions could have. And so, yeah, I think, I had to say maybe, it was intentional or not to kind of throw so much at communities and to advocates to be able to determine, what do I need to elevate. So I just have to say, Dr. Sanborn, there's a lot that's at stake, but for community voices to kind of pick that one or two things that are most important to you and mobilize your community and your neighbors to be able to speak up to what's most important is so critical, and it's needed now more than ever.
Elizabeth, I heard Congressman Michael McCall over the weekend say something about this idea that we can't be against this bill because basically the people that vote for us will vote for anything that Trump wants. He said this, maybe I'm paraphrasing him a little bit, but I wonder if people need to sort of speak up and say, listen, I get that maybe our government seems bloated, but going after poor kids, going after our future doesn't seem to be the way to go. Elizabeth, your thoughts?
Yes, we are talking about the child tax credit, which benefits all of us, even those of us who do not have children, because this is funding that supports families and allows families to basically take care of their own, right? So this is not about like a bloated budget or fraud. This is about giving families the tools they need to support themselves. And the changes that they're proposing are going to give higher income families more and lower income families less. That doesn't make any sense. And that's not fiscally responsible.
Yeah. And Michael, I'll give you the last word here in our press conference. Again, this large percentage of our children that are low income, large percentage of our kids that are going to fall into this mixed status where these families can be at the perfect earning level, but because there's a parent who doesn't have a Social Security number, they're not going to get anything at all. It just reeks with unfairness.
Yeah, and I actually want to echo what Elizabeth said that this is bad policy. I think the folks who were framing this legislation were thinking that by going after families who don't have those two Social Security numbers, that they would essentially be discouraging unlawful immigration. And they forget that there's a lot of households where you have folks who work with ITINs because they're visiting professors, or you have folks who are coming in who aren't going to be in the country for a long time, but they still have to file those taxes or be included in that tax paperwork. So there are a lot of American families who are going to be hurt by this legislation, and it should concern everybody that we are going to have kids who are not going to be able to focus in schools because they're hungry. We're going to have kids who are not going to be able to have clothes or materials for their learning. These are things that affect everybody. And we definitely should not be funding tax cuts for large corporations by taking away money from children.
Absolutely. Very good. Michael Mireles is the Director of Civic Engagement down at Lupe in the Valley, a great organization. Ashley Harris, Director of Public Policy and Advocacy at United Way of Texas, doing work all over the place. And Elizabeth Colvin, Executive Director of Raise Texas, a statewide organization. Thank you very much, all of you, for your great work on this. And thank you for being part of this press conference that's so essential for people to understand what's happening with families in the state of Texas. Thank you, all of you.